Welcome to AI Voices, where we explore the latest innovations in artificial intelligence, hosted by AI, created for curious minds. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the deep dive. Ready to decode AI. It's everywhere these days, but honestly, it can feel kind of like a puzzle.
Yeah, it really can.
So today, we're cutting through the noise. Think of it like getting your AI decoder ring so you can sound brilliant at your next dinner party.
I like that.
We've got two super interesting sources for this deep dive. First up, Ryan Penn's AI crash course intro. He's like a total AI rock star.
Well, I know his work. Very sharp.
And then, get this, we've got notes for a podcast episode, and guess what it's about? AI. It's like meta AI inception.
Very meta.
Right. Okay, so let's kick things off with a big question. What even is AI?
You know, it's all about getting machines to essentially mimic how we think, how humans approach intelligence. So
Right.
we're talking about systems that can learn from stuff, solve problems.
Make decisions, all that good stuff we usually say humans do.
Exactly.
But there are so many terms flying around. Machine learning, deep learning. Are those just like synonyms for AI, or what's the deal?
Okay, so imagine AI as this giant, universe, right? Machine learning is like a galaxy within that universe. It's a specific way we train computers to learn from data.
So like it's getting better over time, like with practice.
Exactly. It's all about pattern recognition, but instead of us doing it, it's algorithms and tons of data.
Okay, so when Spotify knows my taste in music better than I do, is that machine learning in action?
Spot on. That's a classic example. And it's not just music. Think about spam filters, right? Saving our inboxes from disaster. Or even those sometimes creepy, accurate online shopping suggestions.
It's like AI is becoming our personal shopper.
Yeah.
But then there's this deep learning thing. Where does that fit in?
Deep learning, that's where it gets really interesting. Imagine taking inspiration from how our brains work, those neural networks.
Whoa, so it's like brain-inspired AI.
Exactly. We're talking artificial neural networks that can process crazy amounts of information, way more complex stuff.
This is like the stuff behind self-driving cars, right?
Yeah.
And the AI art that's so realistic, it's kind of freaky.
You got it. Deep learning is a total game changer. Computer vision, language translation, it's behind so many breakthroughs, even helping develop new medicines and diagnose diseases way more accurately.
Okay, now I'm both amazed and a tiny bit terrified. But before we go full sci-fi, let's rewind a bit. Our AI Crash Course PDF has this super cool timeline. Do you know this whole AI thing actually started back in the 1950s?
It's wild, right? Back then, it was really just an idea, this dream of, machines that could think like us. Technology wasn't quite there yet, though.
Right, it's like they had the recipe but not all the ingredients. Speaking of which, the timeline says the 1990s were big for AI.
Definitely. The 90s were like AI's awkward teenage years, some growth spurts, a few stumbles. But that's when machine learning really took off. Got more powerful, more useful in the real world.
So it was like AI went from sci-fi fantasy to actual science.
Totally. And that set the stage for the 2010s, where things really exploded, deep learning arrived, and AI went from promising to mind-blowing,
Image recognition, those personalized recommendations we talked about, it's like AI took over the world, but in a good way.
In a good way. It's everywhere now, in our phones, the way businesses work, even shaping the information we see online.
I think a lot of people feel like we're living in a sci-fi movie they didn't sign up for. But before we have an existential crisis, let's break it down. What about this narrow AI thing? Sounds kind of, narrow.
It does, but honestly, narrow AI or weak AI is the real workhorse of AI right now. These systems are like specialists, amazing at one specific task.
Okay, so not some super intelligence taking over the world. More like really good tools for specific jobs.
Exactly. Think of it like a chess prodigy who can beat anyone but can't make a cup of coffee.
Gotcha. But give me some real-world examples. What narrow AI is hiding in plain sight in our lives?
Well, for starters, those email spam filters we were talking about, they're like digital bodyguards for our inboxes, keeping the junk mail out.
Okay, I never thought about it like that.
And then you've got those super specific movie recommendations on Netflix or even Spotify, figuring out exactly what you want to listen to.
It's like having a friend who knows your taste in music better than you do, except the friend is an algorithm.
Right. And don't forget about those chess computers that can outsmart even the best players. Narrow AI again. Amazing at that one thing.
This is painting a much clearer picture. So narrow AI is everywhere, quietly doing its thing. But what about the creative side of AI? That's where things get really wild, right? We've got GPT, Stable Diffusion, names that sound like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie.
You're telling me that's where AI starts to feel like it's got a bit of an artistic streak. Take GPT, for instance.
I've heard so much about GPT, especially GPT-4, the latest version. Is it really as amazing as everyone says?
It's pretty incredible. Imagine, like, the Shakespeare of AI. GPT-4 can write all kinds of stuff. Poems, code, even music. And it sounds like a human wrote it.
Wait, hold on. So it's not just analyzing text, it's actually creating original content in all these different forms.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like it's learned how language works and can now use that to, make something totally new.
That's mind-blowing.
Uh-huh.
And then there's Stable Diffusion, right? The image-generating one. Does that live up to the hype?
Have you ever, tried to describe an image in your head and wished you could just, make it real?
All the time.
Stable diffusion is basically that. You type in a description, anything, and it creates this crazy realistic image based on your words.
No way. And this isn't just for fun, right? The applications for something like that are endless.
Oh, totally. Think about design, advertising, even science. Imagine architects using it to create building designs just from descriptions, or doctors using AI-generated images to understand medical data.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown. This is all so cool, but also, honestly, a little intimidating. Where do we even fit into this whole AI future? Our jobs, our lives, everything. It's like we're living in a sci-fi movie.
It's the big question, right? AI has this crazy potential to change everything, for good or bad. Our sources today talk about the benefits, the challenges, and of course, those big, kind of scary questions that come with AI.
Let's start with the good stuff. How can AI actually make our lives better?
Well, one thing AI is really good at is efficiency. Businesses are using it to, streamline their processes, automate tasks, all that.
Which hopefully makes things less stressful for us in the long run.
Exactly. And imagine, a world where everything is personalized, shopping recommendations that are actually good, healthcare plans tailored to you.
Okay, that part does sound pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But there's got to be a trade-off, right? What about the downsides?
Right, because it's not all perfect. With personalization, it could be easy to get stuck in those information bubbles, right? Only seeing what we already agree with.
It's like getting stuck in an echo chamber of our own thoughts. I hadn't thought about that before. Are there other potential downsides?
Yeah, a lot of people are worried about jobs, and for good reason. AI is going to automate a lot of jobs, which could displace a lot of people.
That's a huge concern. It's like we need to make sure people are prepared for these new jobs AI will create. Speaking of the future, both of our sources talk about this idea of artificial general intelligence, or AGI. It sounds like something straight out of a movie.
It does, doesn't it? AGI is like the holy grail of AI. We're talking about machines that are as smart as humans across the board.
So like thinking critically, understanding emotions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, everything. It could solve some of our biggest problems or, maybe become the villains in our sci-fi movie.
It's both exciting and a little terrifying at the same time. And it makes those ethical considerations so important, right? We need to make sure we're building an AI future that's good for everyone.
Absolutely. We have to be really thoughtful about this.
So we've talked a lot about what AI can do, but how does it actually work? What's going on behind the scenes?
It's like this whole other world. Our podcast notes actually break down the AI development process really well.
Okay, so walk me through it. It all starts with data, right?
Data is everything to AI. It's like, imagine you're teaching someone to bake, right? They need the right ingredients, the recipe, everything to learn. AI is the same way. It needs tons of good data to learn anything.
So it's not just about having a lot of data, but making sure it's good data, accurate, unbiased, all that.
Totally. If you train an AI on bad data, you'll get bad AI. Imagine teaching someone to paint using only one color.
They'd be a pro at that one color, but not a very good artist overall.
Exactly. So first you need good data, then you have to choose the right kind of AI, the right algorithm for the job.
So like different AIs for different tasks.
Yep. Some are good at language, some at images, and so on. You got to pick the right tool for the job.
Makes sense. And then what? You've got your data, you've got your AI. What's next?
Training time. This is where the machine learning magic happens. We feed the AI tons of data, and it starts to learn, make connections,
It's like AI boot camp. The more it practices, the better it gets.
Right. And like any good training, there are tests. We have to see how the AI does with new information, stuff it hasn't seen before, to make sure it's actually learning.
So it's not just memorizing, it's actually understanding.
Yeah.
But what happens when the AI is done with training? Like it graduates, what then?
Then it's time to let it loose in the real world. But we don't just abandon it, of course. We're constantly monitoring, making sure it's working like it should, adjusting things.
So it's like sending your kid off to college. You've prepared them, but you still check in, offer advice, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Developing AI is this ongoing process. It's constantly evolving.
It sounds super complex.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges businesses face when they're trying to, actually use AI?
One of the biggest is data, actually. Remember how he said good data is essential?
Yeah, AI is only as good as its data diet.
Right. Getting the right data, cleaning it, organizing it, it's a huge task. And it can be super expensive.
Like finding a needle in a haystack.
Hmm.
But the haystack is made of information, and the needle is good data.
And then there's the challenge of finding people who actually know how to do all this. AI specialists are in high demand.
So you need the right technology and the right people to build and manage it all. Are there other challenges?
Oh, yeah. For a lot of companies, it's fitting AI into their existing systems. A lot of businesses have older technology.
It's like trying to get that old record player to work with your fancy new wireless headphones. A recipe for a headache.
You could say that again. It's definitely not plug and play. But for those companies willing to put in the time and money, the possibilities are huge.
So AI is powerful, it's exciting, but it's not magic. And it comes with a whole lot of, let's call it homework. We need to be thinking about the ethical stuff, making sure it's developed responsibly.
Couldn't agree more. And honestly, this is why it's so important for everyone, not just the tech people, to understand at least the basics of AI. This stuff is going to affect all of us.
Totally. The more we know, the better we can adapt to the changes, have informed conversations, maybe even help steer it in the right direction.
Exactly. Think of it like knowing how to read a map. You don't need to be a cartographer, but if you know the basics, you can navigate.
Love that analogy. So for our listeners who've been on this AI deep dive with us today, what are the key takeaways you want them to remember?
Okay, number one, AI isn't some far-off thing. It's already here, working behind the scenes in our lives, whether we realize it or not.
It's like AI is everywhere, even if we don't see the code.
Right. And number two, AI has the potential to be totally revolutionary. It could change industries, lead to scientific breakthroughs, all kinds of amazing stuff.
But, and this is a big but, it's not all perfect. We have to be aware of the challenges, right? Like data privacy,
Right.
bias in algorithms, those are big ones.
Huge. And the impact on jobs, on how we interact with each other, we can't ignore that. AI is powerful, and we need to be careful how we develop it.
It's like we're at this crossroads with AI. So much potential, but also potential for problems if we're not careful. So the big question is, what role do we want to play in all of this?
Right. Do we sit back and let algorithms run the show, or do we try to help shape how AI develops?
Do we approach it with fear, or do we embrace it and try to steer it in a positive direction? These are big questions.
They really are. And honestly, I don't think there are easy answers, but the more we learn, the better equipped we are to make good decisions.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, right? It helps us see both the amazing possibilities and the potential downsides so we can navigate this new world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a journey, and we're all figuring it out together.
And that's what we're all about here on The Deep Dive, getting curious, asking questions, and diving deep into these fascinating topics. Thanks for exploring with us today, everyone. Until next time, stay curious.
Brought to you by Whitehawk Consultancy, specializing in AI solutions for businesses. Please follow, share, and subscribe for more insights.